You can't just want a podcast because it sounds cool. You have to really have a lot of curiosity in your world. For me, I'm a life learner. I want to learn from everybody who's on my show. That's my whole goal there.
Love Gangster with Adrian Boysel.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Love Gangster. I'm your host, Adrian Boysel. I have a very special episode with a very special guest, Lady Jen. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit in the audience here about yourself.
Oh, gosh. Well, the first thing I'd have to say is that I'm one of 36 first cousins. All of us had a nickname.
Okay.
And mine was Jenny, who ain't got a penny. And that is what really formed my entire life.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I had this whole life. My uncle said to me, Jenny, you're going to be just like your dad, an alcoholic. You're going to be just like your mom, a verbal abuser. You're going to be poor because they're poor. And that's what happens in life, right? Back then, that's kind of what happened.
Yep.
And there was an episode that I'll leave out that made me say, you know what? I'm not going to do this. I'm going to prove to these people that I am not going to be Jenny who ain't got a penny. And that transferred into my career as well. So that's really where everything starts with me.
That's very inspirational. Yeah. So what is your background in?
Well, for 35 years, I was in mortgage lending and finance and top in the country, top 200 loan officers in the country. I've funded over $1 billion in loans, which is only, I think 20 of us have ever done that.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a goal in my life, which was fund $1 billion. Don't say you've been in the business for 40 years. Like, get out before 40.
Yeah.
And I wanted to leave the business by the time I was 55. And I accomplished all of that on a Friday afternoon. And on Monday, I walked in and said, I'm out.
Wow.
I'm out. Away I go. And now I am coaching and helping other people, who have that same kind of business, not mortgage specifically, but have that business that they want to grow and scale.
Like a service type business?
Yeah, I'm all about scaling businesses. I'm known as the scaling and team building architect.
So is that kind of how your brain works? Are you kind of the engineer, architect company?
My degree is in architectural design and construction engineering.
There we go.
So yes.
You exited, how long ago did you do your exit from the industry?
8 years.
Okay, so 8 years. And
yeah.
What have you been doing for the last 8 years?
Yeah, I'm an award-winning international speaker. I have 2 podcasts. I've been running one for 13 years. I'm one of the veterans in podcasting. I have 4 #1 best-selling books. I have 2 TV shows. And I mentor and do masterminds and retreats and just enjoying life. I mean, I really created what I was setting out to create when I made that decision in the mortgage business that I'd had enough. And I said, there's got to be a better way to do this. And I created that.
Well, most people never even reach 1 year in podcasting, let alone 13 years, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you've learned, the biggest things, takeaways you've learned from 13 years of podcasting?
Yeah, I know. When I think about that, I'm just going, is that number right? But I know it is.
Yeah.
I honestly think, so this would be one thing about podcasting is if you're going to make a transition in a career, I used podcasting to answer questions. When I became one of the top 200 loan officers, I got, can I pick your brain? By the way, I have a website called pickjensbrain.net.
Nice.
And but I thought, well, how do I answer questions to people? And I said, I've heard of this thing called a podcast. Maybe we should try it. And I swear, if I didn't have the podcast, I would simply be a retired loan officer.
Wow.
It is the thing that springboarded my entire career now.
It was a catalyst.
Yeah. And so that's what I would say is if you're making the transition, that's number 1. Number 2 is you got to be curious about people. You can't just want a podcast because it sounds cool. You have to really have a lot of curiosity in your world. And for me, I'm a life learner. So I want to learn from everybody who's on my show. That's my whole goal there. Out of the box thinker, maybe a ... thinker. I always say I'm not a period thinker. Like, they're cool.
Yeah.
I think, how could we have a relationship? How could we do a pod swap? How could we? And because of that, I've never had a service for getting guests. I've never had a service for being on. I've been on over 1,300 podcasts now. And I've never applied to do it. I've always been asked.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a gift. Well, what was the defining moment in podcasting? Because people reach those moments and they're like, is this worth it? What was it when you were like, yep, this is it. This is the path.
Oh, gosh. I don't even know if there was a moment, but, I think that, if you start going down that line, here's I said this earlier today when we were talking. Everybody has a specific DNA, your personality, what you want from podcasting. If you go in thinking, well, I'm just going to charge everybody to be a guest, which I do.
Okay.
If they don't have an affiliate agreement, if they don't have affiliate, they have to pay to be on my show because it costs money to do it, right?
Absolutely.
And but some are saying, well, I'm just going to interview people and then they're going to be my clients, so I'm going to pitch them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different ways to do it. One of the things that I do that's super unique is that after we have an interview, I have a series of emails that go out and say, thank you so much for being a guest. You've probably been on other shows. Is there a show that you think I would be good for?
Smart.
And then another one that goes out and says, hey, maybe there's other hosts or other guests that that could be a guest on my show. And then every 6 months, we have a pop-up mastermind. And I invite everyone who's been on the show for the last 6 months to a mastermind so they can meet each other and get on more shows and do more hosting, etc. And that has been extremely instrumental. And that's a huge value add.
Wow.
Huge value add for.
So did you get traction and a lot of views and visibility on your podcast right away? Or did it take some time? Like, what was the timeline for you?
Yeah. Well, I was, and I don't even know where I'm ranked now, but I was ranked 284 in Apple Podcasts for business and management.
Wow.
I think just through attrition, because I've been out there so long.
That's right.
When I first started, there were 3 other podcasts that were in the mortgage space. One had 1 episode. One, I don't even remember what it was. And there was another one that was still going, but he quit about 2 months later. So I'm the longest running podcast in the mortgage space. And that's just one of my podcasts.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Has that been a client acquisition as far as like for coaching, like where you use that, you leverage that?
I think it is. But again, I'm not pitching like what people do. I think it's peripheral. It's peripheral. It's like, I saw your podcast. Could you maybe coach? And I get lots of speaking gigs. I'm a paid speaker. I don't pay to speak anywhere anymore. And so I got lots of speaking gigs. And of course, that led to coaching. So
100%.
I think if people can have just some patience and say, this is what we're creating exposure for ourselves, right? We're creating a brand for ourselves. And it does pay for itself along the line.
At what point, if someone were to start a podcast today, setting expectations is a really big challenge for most people.
Yeah.
And going in with realistic expectations. How long should they be doing the podcast before they see some form of a result?
Well, first of all, they have to be willing to track, because if they're not willing to track, it's a feeling.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
So if you're like a person who goes, well, I don't want to track everything and see where everything came from, then don't even podcast. Don't even do it. Just do a Facebook Live. Have some fun with it. I think it's going to be different for everybody. I do think it is. It depends on, are you starting off with 1,000 followers? Are you starting off with 20,000 followers? I think that's going to be part of it. Are you a niche, or are you just more like, hey, we'll talk to everybody about everything? I think that's going to dilute your success in a certain way.
Yeah.
So I think I can't answer that because I think it's going to be different for everybody, but you have to track.
That was you have to track. You gotta know the metrics, right?
Yeah.
So what would you say is the biggest mistake that podcasters that you've seen make, besides quitting too soon?
Well, for me personally, I cannot stand being on a podcast where there are 10 questions that they ask everybody. So the next question that we ask everybody who's on our show is, bleh. Or they want to send the information to me ahead of time and have me answer the question. And then, 4 months later, I'm on the show and I don't remember what I said.
That's right.
And I'm in a different space. So don't do your research and have some, notes, some bullets of what you want to ask people.
Yep.
But get away from this canned thing. It's the more vulnerable. And I don't know what kind of podcast you have. Okay. So I want to be careful about this, but, Saturday Night Live a long time ago, and if you're too young to know this, you got to go look it up, but they had this Christmas special called Sweaty Balls.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Do you remember this?
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it was like my 8th or 9th podcast that I was doing. I was trying to be somebody that I'm not, right? So vulnerability is, being, authentic, and I screw up people's names all the time. And we don't edit it. It's like, I just learned your name, I practiced it, and then we go, hi, and I screw it up, right? And I'm like, whatever.
Just leave it in.
But you're doing this podcast. And by the way, back then, they weren't video, ear set, whatever. I don't even know what they call them now. Not earpods, but, whatever, the string. And in the background, you can hear, like, my dog going, hey, I'm supposed to be in there, right? And so you could hear all this stuff in there. And but this one, I was going, hi, welcome to the show. that sounds really good. You sound like the sweating balls scare, right? And I go, I'm going to redo it. And I decided not to.
Good.
And I've talked about it lots and lots of times, these embarrassing moments and stuff. And I think it's cool because people are like, I went back and I listened to it. It was so funny.
It
It sounds
gives
just
you
like
something
that.
to talk about, right?
Absolutely.
Stories
So
to tell.
be yourself. You know, Purdue Chicken, right?
Uh-huh.
Mitzi Purdue, he's gone now, but Mitzi Purdue, she was on my show and we were talking about some stuff. And I had my whole setup and I, because I'm in architecture design and stuff, my architectural desk slid backward. It slid. Everything went. Coffee, water, phone, screens, everything went. She called 911 and thought, because we had just exchanged addresses, right?
Yeah.
And she called 911 to have them come out because she thought I had a heart attack.
Wow.
Right. And I knew exactly where it happened. So I go, just hang on. My husband's going to come home and we're going to get it all set up. We reset it up. I go, don't change your clothes. Don't go primp. Don't do anything. We get on there and I'm like, so tell me about how you're working with women who are trafficked. Right. And we went right into it. It was the craziest thing. And I started thinking, maybe we should have a podcast about a little mouse in the corner could talk about what happens on podcasts because
Exactly.
it's the coolest thing.
Well,
Yeah.
that was actually leading right to my next question is from a social impact perspective, that's what my show is all about. Love gangsters, killing with kindness, doing great things in the world, helping people, supporting people, loving on people, and doing it in an unapologetic way, right?
Yeah.
Like a
Yep.
boss. What is the most impactful episode that you would say out of the 13 years? What's the one that just stands out to you? Like, that one was the one.
I mean, you're talking about 800 and maybe more episodes. It's going to be hard. I would say the one with Mitzi is probably not because all that stuff fell, but because it was so impactful, from what she does, because being a royal in the royal house of Cappadocia, right, and being in the order of Constantine the Great and St. Helen, one of the things that we work on all the time is helping women and children that are homeless and helping girls that are trafficked. So for me, that was already something that was impactful. I will say this though. Frank Shankwitz, who the founder of Make-A-Wish was a friend of mine, and he was one of my first guests on my second podcast.
Wow.
And that means so much.
Yeah.
It just means so much that I got that opportunity before he passed.
Just an amazing social
Yeah.
impact person. Just
Yeah.
such a dramatic, just huge heart.
Yeah.
It's sad that he's no longer with us, but he left such an amazing legacy. So those are the kinds of people that we want to carry their legacies on, right?
Right,
And keep
right.
those things going.
Yeah.
So in every single interview I like to do, I always want the listeners and the people who are watching to be challenged by the guests that I have for some sort of social impact cause. And so this is an opportunity for you to challenge the people that are watching. What is one, it could be simple. Like my wife was like, just call somebody you haven't talked to in a while and just tell them you love them and care about them, right? What's one action that somebody can take today to
show some love? Okay, so in business, I have a strategy called the ABCs, and I'm going to talk about something else, but I have to set this up and give you some context for. So it's something called the ABCs. God gave us 52 weeks in the year, or somebody did.
Yep.
Right? Half of that's 26 letters in the alphabet. So if you call everybody with the last name A or the first name, just keep it simple, last name A the first week of January, and then call them the first week of July, you will get in touch with everybody in your database for twice a year. So you could do, and then their birthdays, and then their anniversaries, and then all the other stuff. But so you do A's the first week, B's the second week, C's the second, and you'll get to everybody. If you want to get in touch with people 4 times a year, then you do A's in a quarter. You do A's and B's, B's and C's, etc. That's great because that's you reaching out and saying, "Hey, I'm thinking about you. I want to touch base." The fun thing to do, here's the biggest challenge. It's do ZYXs at the same time. So the first week when you're doing A's, whatever the week is, now you get into your database and you look at everybody with the last name Z and you go onto their Facebook page and you record a testimonial for them. Whether it's a character testimonial, a business testimonial, or a referral partner testimonial, I promise the law of reciprocity will come back to you tenfold, right? So while I'm calling and reaching out to my clients and saying, hey, I'm touching base with you. What can I do for you? I'm also surprising them with, hey, let me tell you a little bit about this person and why you should work with them.
That's really great. That's a really smart idea.
Yeah.
So that's your challenge. You just start going through 52 weeks in a year, start through the A's, and then next week the B's. Drop a comment, reach out to us on social, let us know that you did it. Report back. We'll be swimming with the fishes, capiche? So that's what I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for being here, Lady Jen.
Absolutely.
Awesome conversation. We'll see you guys on the next episode. I'm Adrian Boysel, and as always, keep looking up.
Came here to fill the void. I am love. I am peace. I am joy that can never be destroyed. I am love.